I know we got a lot of folks out of town. I know that, but some wasn't out of town that I thought were out of town. But I still know we got a lot out of town. And then there were several I was unsure of. So we'll see how that works. Okay. But anyway, it's good to be here today. Amen. And appreciate everybody coming to the mother and daughter banquet yesterday. That was a good time together. Always is. And so that was a good time together. I got some several announcements I want to go over with you, and I'll go over all this again with church too. The flowers today that you see here have been given in memory of Mary Buchanan. Many of you in here, I guess most of you in here, probably didn't know her. She was Mimi. Is how many of us knew her, and very faithful member of our church for a long time. Her and her husband both were members here, and Miss Mary was one of those Methodists that came into our church and scared to death of water, and I was told that she wants to join the church but never would because she was so scared of water and wouldn't get baptized. And but several weeks after I was told that, she came up to me and told me, she says, "Well, honey, I think I'm ready." I said, "Ready for what?" She says, "I want to join the church and I think I'm ready to be baptized." So I baptized her daughter, and then her granddaughter, and then two of her great-granddaughters, I think it was. It was five at one time, I remember that. Okay, and they were all in the family right now. I think it was 3 or 4 generations. You remember that, Miss Shelby? Was that before you come on? Okay. Well, I didn't realize it'd been that long ago, but okay. I knew it'd been back a little while. Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, I baptized. It might have been either 4 or 5 generations I baptized right there in the baptistry at one time. I want to say 4 is what it was. Miss Jane, you remember? Goodness. Okay. Okay. Well, I know nobody else ain't going to remember it then. Nobody else going to remember it. Because if that's the case, that's for Miss Rita. And too. And yeah, it wouldn't have been before Lisa. She was here. Okay. Well, anyway, the flowers today are given in memory of her by her children, and and she only has 2 daughters left, and that's Margaret and can't think of the lady's name in Birmingham, but she lives in Birmingham. She's a realtor. All right. So then remember Thursday, the 18th, is Young at Heart going to the Old Time Country Buffet, Old Time Country Buffet in Auburn. Okay, at the mall. That's at 10 o'clock. Be here Thursday for that. Pray for Miss Monis K. Miss Monis, I didn't realize it till Miss Monis put it in perspective for me. I had a good talk with her yesterday, and but she was calling me to let me know that her sister that we've been praying for, Joe Cantrell Bell, I've been mentioning, passed away night before last or evening before last, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that makes Miss Monis the last in that family. But she's had it. Then when she put it in perspective, I didn't really realize it, but there was a connection on Brother Bobby's side to Rex Ledbetter when Lydia had passed. And then there's a connection on Brother Bobby's side to Mickey Coleman when he passed. And then her brother died. Pete Cantrell died. He lived up in Hopeful. And now Joe Cantrell Bell passed. So cousins and a brother and a sister is so be in prayer for her. She says, it's there's a lot going on, but she's just her sweet self like she always is. And so keep her in your prayers. And then I mentioned, I think Wednesday night, about Brother Robert Keaton. Brother Robert Keaton, our missionary, who they had a 2-inch nodule around his thyroid. Doctor said need to go to this doctor, a surgeon. It needs to come off because it was mashing against his windpipe and he couldn't breathe very well. And said it was 50% that it was cancer. So you need to go get it seen about and get it done. So he went to the surgeon. The surgeon did his own CAT scan. That was Thursday. That was the last thing I told you was about him. So he went to the surgeon on Thursday at 11:30, I think it was. And the surgeon did his own CAT scan. And he said, look, he says, I got an idea. He said, you're going to permit me to do this? We're going to try something. He said, because I got an idea. So they did the CAT scan, then they prepped him for a procedure. And he says, I believe it's a cyst. I don't believe it's cancer. I believe it's a cyst. And he says, and this will test my theory. So they put a needle in there and drew out 60 cc's of fluid out of that cyst. And he says, I'm going to send it off to make sure, but I'm almost positive it's not cancer. And he says, but here's the thing. In 2 months, he's got to go back to see if it filled back up. And if it's filled back up, they're going to have to go in there and take the sac out that the cyst has so it won't come back. Okay. But good news there. Good news there. So, and then some more, I pray, I was talking to Brother Rick about this, and, there's so many unknowns with Anders' crew that you just don't really know. But they did get word that it's a possibility, and I'm going to keep saying that word because they have a lot of times they want to change and back up and punt again. But there's a possibility of Amber and Anders being able to come home now and then go back to Birmingham 2 or 3 days a week for some, immunity deficiency medicines to keep him stable, because they said that everything they're doing for him there, they could do, 2 or 3 trips a week to Birmingham instead of them staying in the hospital all the time. And so they're working towards that. If nothing else comes back telling them otherwise, I guess. So it's a possibility. Have I explained that pretty good, Miss Tony? Brother Rick's a lot like me. I don't like to get him. People ask me all the time in town about him. And I tell them, I said, well, they're just waiting on tests. The doctors really don't know. They're stumped. They think this, but that could change tomorrow. And that's the way it's been, and that's the way it is. And they're still unsure. They really are still unsure. They're still tossing the balls. They really don't know. So the Lord's answering prayer there too. The Lord working. And it's an interesting thing when you say that the Lord works in mysterious ways, because he does. He doesn't work in the ways we think he should or going to. And so you keep praying for Amber, keep praying for Seth, keep praying for Anders and Parker Brooks and the family. And I know they really appreciate it, and they do. And got another bag up here. If we don't get it to the hospital and they back, we'll take it to the house. That ain't no problem. So if you want to bring something, put it in there and didn't get it on the last time. I'm sure she had a good time with that last one. And did she have a good time with it? That's good. Next Sunday, Brotherhood Breakfast. That's next Sunday morning. Then getting into, of course, we're getting already almost into June. Pray for all of our missionaries. The situation in Manipur in India, a little better. They're trying to work through that situation there. So keep them in your prayers. Pray for Brother David's uncle's family, the Dewey Floyd family. The last couple of weeks, Brother Rick and Brother David have done their first funeral. And so they continue to grow in the ministry, doing things in the ministry that need to be done. So that's a good thing. And more that our church is called upon to do, and which that's okay too. Okay? And pray about that, okay? Pray for my home church, Central Baptist Temple is the name of that church there. They vote on their pastor next week. I watched this kid grow up, the guy that they're going to be voting on next week. I watched him grow up as a little, just remember when he was born. So, young guy. And so pray about that, okay? And pray for all of our missionaries. I was trying to think any more of our missionaries specifically that beside Brother Robert Keaton. I think that's it. Any other prayer requests we need to mention this morning? Over here, anything? Over here, over here. Yes, ma'am.
Would you add Bert Gordon? I
Bert, what's his last name? Gordon. Okay. All right. All right. Anything else? Grant Norman. Burned his own. I can imagine. I could imagine. I mean, yeah, right. Yeah, pray about that, okay? All right, anything else? Good to see Miss Debbie back. And Brother John, he's back with the teens because, like I said, we got some folks gone. So, all right. Anything else we need to mention that I hadn't mentioned? All righty then. Any birthdays, anniversaries? Evie had one. Evie had one. And is that where everybody's at? Oh, okay. Well, bless them. When we get back, we have to sing happy birthday. Don't ever forget it. All right, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Brother Jason, you pray for us, brother? Try to go ahead. Let's do it low if you have to. Amen. All right. If I can get the horizons passed out, brother, if you pass these out, brother James Redden Jr. No. Yeah. Does anybody need one of these names of God through that we did last week? We didn't get to the. Okay, we got one over. I'll give you all them. You can pass them out right there too. Okay.
Today would have been our 17th or 18th.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. I'm going to put that in my Bible right there, and I'll take care of it in a minute, in a little bit, okay? Trying to make sure I got all the remember the graduates, Will, Tally, and Dawson Mills. Those are the graduates this year. Next Sunday is when we'll be recognizing those graduates, next Sunday. Okay? And, all right. Go over to John 10 if you would. Just get back there. We spent some time with this last week, but I want to spend some more with it today. I don't think I got everywhere I wanted to get to last week as we talk about Thura. And that's, you know, what you got, Miss Deborah, or Miss Erica, what you got, huh? You need something? Oh, she wants to give you one back, Brother James. Thura is the word. That's what's meant by the door, and good word to associate through. You go through the door. I always had to learn by association. I mentioned that to you last week, and we talked about those who enter in through the door find peace and safety, refuge from life's trials and burdens. Go over to Matthew chapter 11. I don't know that I looked at this verse or not, but if we did, that's fine. If we didn't, that all the more reason we need to do it. Matthew 11, verse 28. It says, "Come unto me, all you that labor and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." And that has a significance of coming to Him, coming through the door. Remember, the door of the sheepfold was that sort of like I don't know if it had been a block wall or rock wall. It could have been a rock wall. It could have been a thing called like a boma, You know what a boma is? A boma is that thing that you out in the desert you'd get prickly thorns, and you'd build a barrier, you know, and you'd make a one-way in, and then the sheep would go into there, and the shepherd would lay across the entrance. That's the door, and that's the idea of the door, thura. And that's the reason Christ, you know, in the Gospel of John chapter 10, he keeps talking about, you know, the door. Verse 3 of verse 10, it says, to him that the porter openeth, the sheep hear his voice, and he calleth his own sheep by name and leadeth them out. But I think we talked about it in depth last week, verse 5, and a stranger will they not follow, but will flee from him. You know, and I talked about the sheep not following the stranger. But we sure got a lot of, you know, the Bible also talked about, you know, I think about strange voices. When I think about chapter 10, I think about strange voices. Christians following strange voices. I was thinking about yesterday, you know, how things have, you know, changed and just in society and just in a few short years. I was in Friday evening, I went to the doctor. I went to the store, and I probably need to go to the doctor. But I went to the store, and I don't generally go to the store on Friday evenings, and you know, but I did, and I need to probably do it more often, because I ran across more people that I don't normally run across that evening than I ever do any other time I go to the store. I mean, I was just running across them everywhere, you know, and every time I run across one, that was another 10 or 15 minutes added to my trip, you know, because I got to stop and talk, because I hadn't seen them in a while, and, you know, I had to catch up and that kind of thing. And incidentally, all three of these people listened to me on the radio, all three of them. They all listened to me on the radio, and in the mornings. And all three of them wanted to tell me how much they enjoyed it, and they always listen, and, you know, and, oh, yeah, I'm going to come to your church. I'm coming. And, of course, that's a lie. They ain't coming. But I hear that all the time. I do. Honestly, every week somebody says, I'm coming. If everybody told me they were coming, we'd had to build another building in about a month, because that's how many. I'm serious. That's how many people it is. And I think they got all the best intentions in the world, but I just don't think they're going to follow them to carry them out. And I don't think these people are. I just don't think it, because, you know, I say, well, what you need to do is just come. You just need to do it. If the Lord's speaking to you enough to say, I want to come, then you just need to do it. And, you know, that's all I can do, right? But they were telling me about how things are, and you know, and you know, that kind of thing. And I'm saying, boy, times have really, really, really just changed, you know, from where they are. And you know, and I'm thinking, I said, okay, Lord, you're the door. You know, you're the one going to come and open the door one of these days, literally, for the rapture of the church. And I'm thinking we're closer now than we've ever been, and I believe that, amen, for that. But Christ is the door, and that represents He is our protector. He is He's our refuge from trials, from burdens. But then we got doors and entrances also cause division. Now I want you to think about this for a moment. You can't be on the inside of a door and outside at the same time. You either got to be in or out, right? You can't be on the inside or outside. You got to be on one or the other. So it causes some kind of division. And to be inside, it means you turn around and you turn your back on the world, and you're looking at the world. And if you're on the outside, you're still looking into the Christianity and saying, I need to go to church. That's the people out there. I need to go to church. And now all of us have been there, and I believe it's a process. And I believe part of them people telling me I need to come to church is a process. I really do. I'm not being negative to the point. I don't think they're going to do it today. As a matter of fact, one of them already made excuses. They are in talking to me. Well, it won't be tomorrow. I mean, this Sunday, because it's Mother's Day. So can't go on Mother's Day. It won't be next week because we're going to be out of town. And I'm not sure about that third week. But time the third week gets here, they got 2 weeks to come up with something else. So that's the way it'll be. The devil will keep you busy from doing what you need to do, that you know what God's leading you to do. He'll keep you busy from doing it. And I've been there. All of us have been there. And so a lot of times people are on the outside looking through the door and saying, boy, I really need to do that. 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 And then you got those that are inside the door looking out and saying, boy, the world's in a mess, and they really need to do that. They really need to do that. They need to come. And that's where hopefully that's where we are, right? That's where we are in our lives, okay? So that door that Christ represents in John 10, the shepherd door, that's what I like to refer to it, the shepherd door. It leads us and guides through our lives as we listen to his voice. And there are a lot of strange voices out there. And then in the Old Testament, you remember we're talking about Bible trivia. Somebody asked me this question, I'd have missed it myself. Who was somebody help me out? Somebody here got to know this. Who was Eli's 2 sons that offered strange fire and God killed? Hophni, yeah. And Phinehas, is that right? Okay, that's it. See, I told y'all I knew one of them. Somebody didn't know. And I was thinking of Hophni, but I wasn't for sure. That wasn't what came to my brain. I think about strange voices and I think about strange fire. Today we're living in a world where there's strange voices and there's strange fire being done in the house of God. Okay? Now you saying, what is that about? Remember last week I opened the door, and I think it was last Sunday night I did this, and I'm gonna carry on that tonight. We was talking about the marriage of the Lamb, and I was going through the end time events and things that are going on. And I mentioned this fact about the one world church. Remember that? I mentioned about the one world church, the church that's going to be here. There's going to be a church during the tribulational period. It's going to be an antichrist-run church, but it's going to be a church. I really believe that this, what do they call it, emergent church that has crept up out of the contemporary church, that has crept into our society, where people are drawn to it, just drawn to it, and it's really, there's no service, there's no missions, there's really nothing to it. If you look at it, it's the difference between drinking a glass of water and drinking something that's got some substance to it. I mean, it's the difference between God watering and you watering out of the tap. In other words, it keeps you alive, but yet it doesn't make you grow. That's a good way of putting it, okay? But yet it satisfies that religiosity in a lot of folks, but yet they can go and never commit. I've learned that's where things are right now. People want to go to church, they want to go, but they don't want to commit. So what they do, they like going to the large places to where they can get lost. See, I can go there, I don't have to do anything, number one. Number two, if I don't come, they don't notice. See, no commitment. See, there's all that working in there. And that's part of if the devil can make you feel good about what you're doing, then you're pretty good, right? And he's making a lot of people feel good about nothing right now. So we need to be leery of that. Now let's go look at our blanks here on Thura, okay? And then let's fill out these, okay? We're on the paragraph. Jesus Christ is the living door. Not just a door, he's the living door. Okay? And like a shepherd who lays across the entrance. You know, that's that picture I gave you of the boma or the rock structure. So Christ lovingly cares for us who are the sheep of his pasture, Psalm 23. Those who enter in through the living door find peace and refuge from life's trials and burdens. First blank is entrance. Second blank is burdens. Okay? You need a sheet? You got one? You need one? You got a... You done brought them back up here, haven't you, brother? Done snuck them in here on me. Entrance, first blank, second blank, burdens. Christ is the through of life itself. Without him, there is no life at all. And that's the whole 18 verses of John 10. Okay, everybody got the paragraph? Okay. Roman numeral 1. As the door, Jesus Christ is the living entrance of salvation. Because what is the idea that the sheep go in and they find what? Salvation. They're safe in there. You can read Acts 4:12. There's no other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved. And John 14:6. I am the way, the truth, the life. No man cometh to the Father but by me. And then 7 and 9 of chapter 10. Okay. As through Christ is the only way to enter in God's sheepfold. That's letter A. Entrance, Roman numeral 1. Sheepfold, letter A. Letter B. He is the door because he's the only one accepted by the Father. Verse 15 of John chapter 10, as the Father knoweth me, even so I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. He is the door because he is the only one accepted by the Father. Letter C, Roman numeral 1. He is the door because he gave his life for the sheep. Same verse. And I gave you a few more verses there, 14, 16, 17, and 18. All right? Everybody good so far? Roman numeral 2. As the door, Jesus Christ is the loving shepherd of the sheep. As the door, Jesus Christ is the loving shepherd of the sheep. You know, there's all kinds of ministry out there you can do. You know, it's amazing to me that people who come to church and say, I want a job, and then they leave because they never got one, and they already had one, just didn't realize it. One of the best examples of this is Miss Margaret. Miss Margaret is, she finds more ways to minister than just a little bit. I'm telling you. One of the ways she did it, one of the books that I mentioned, you know how many times I mention a book? Okay? Well, I mentioned a book by Philip Keller. And back when I did, a series, I think, on Psalm 23. Remember that? And I mentioned the book by Philip Keller that I had read many, many years ago. And I thought was an excellent book. And it's called A Shepherd's Look at Psalm 23. That's the name of the book. A Shepherd's View. I think it's a Shepherd's View of Psalms 23. And written by Philip Keller. Okay? And, lo and behold, what she did was she ordered a bunch of those books. They're not much. I think the original's out of print. You got to get them. They've been reprinted, but they're just a thin little book. It's not much. It's not a long book. Okay? Great book to sit down and read in one sitting, to be honest. Okay? Well, she ordered a bunch of those books. And the post lady brought it to the house. And she asked her, she says, do you have a moment, before, so I can open the box? I guess she wanted, I don't know what the lady thought when she was doing that, but she did. Well, she took out one of those books and gave it to her. Gave it to the post lady. So she's giving these books away, And that's a good way of, a lot of times, spurring something in somebody, sparking something that might be already there. Who knows? Okay? But I thought about that in Romans number 2. As the door, Jesus Christ is the loving shepherd of the sheep. I thought about Psalm 23:1. The Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not want. Amen. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures, right? He all those things he does for us and cares for us. Letter A of Roman numeral 2. As through Christ is our shepherd leader. That's the first one. He's our shepherd leader. He leads us, just like a shepherd would a sheep. He leads us. Letter B, as through Christ is our shepherd protector. He's the one that lays across the sheepfold. He's the one that keeps enemies out, but also keeps us in. He's the leader. Because I wonder what a sheep would do. I know what they do. We do what all of us do as sheep spiritually. If the shepherd didn't lay across the entrance, what would the sheep do? They'd wander out, wouldn't they? They'd wander out, just like we wander. And sheep, like I said, it goes back to the helplessness of the sheep. If they wander out, get down into a ditch and get off their feet, they can't get back up because that's how helpless they are. They got to have the shepherd to help them. If you read that book by Philip Keller, he goes through all the things about the rod and the staff. They comfort me. He talks about the hook of the shepherd's staff. You know, he talks about all of that. It's amazing how he puts it all in there. Let us see, as through Christ is our shepherd voice. We hear him. He's not strange to us. We follow him. And I think it goes back to John, John 10, verse 27. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them. He knows us. We know his voice. But there's some strange things going on right now. There's a lot more going on right now than most people want to admit, I think, number one. Number two, can handle. Number two. Number three, want to see and believe. I really do. I see that. Because I'm in the latter. I can handle it. And I see it. I can handle it. But I don't like it. And but there's nothing I can do about it as one person. I feel like John the Baptist. John the Baptist was a voice crying in the wilderness. And I go back to that philosophical question. If you are the lone voice in the wilderness, does your voice even make a sound? If there's no one there to hear you, does it make a sound? And sometimes I'm wondering, okay, I'm a voice crying in the wilderness. Am I getting out? It's a lot like, I told you I'm a CB radio. I use CB. I talk on CB some. And sometimes, there's a lot of things I found that can go out with those CBs that you don't even know about. I get on CB radio and I go to Holland and nobody talks. Nobody answers me. Nobody. I said, I don't even believe this thing's working. And sure enough, one time it wasn't working. It wasn't working. I finally got somebody the next day on my base station at the house. I said, man, I hollered all day yesterday. I never heard you. Something must be wrong with it. Then I went out there and got to looking at it, and there was a wire broke on my antenna. I wasn't getting out. So I'm wondering if we're getting out. Sometimes I wonder that. This is my, if I can get depressed, let me just share this with you. If I can get depressed, and I do, if I can get depressed, what it is, I'm just wondering if the message is getting out. I'm just wondering if people are really hearing. They're hearing the words. I'm just seeing if they're understanding what's coming out of the word. I want to go like that guy on television and say, do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? Then I go back to these three people that I run across. Oh, I'm coming to your church. I'm coming to your church. I'm coming up there. If everybody comes, I'm telling you, we won't have nowhere to put them. Roman numeral 3. As the door, Jesus Christ is our through to abundant life, not just life. And here's where a lot of people miss the boat when he says in verse 10, the thief cometh not, but for to steal, to kill, and to destroy. I am come that they might have life and have it more abundantly. And here's something I learned a long time ago as a young preacher boy in my home church. I learned this from my pastor. He said this. He says, don't just endure your salvation. Enjoy your salvation. And I've always remembered that because I didn't want to be one that just endured it. Said, okay, I'm saved, yeah, but I want to enjoy what God's given me. And he says, I've come that you might have it more what? Abundantly. But I understand. I understand the depression. As a pastor, you ought to be called. I go back to what I mentioned last week about Isaiah and Ezekiel. Remember those two I gave you examples of? That God both gave them messages that they said, all right, Isaiah, I want you to go preach, but nobody's going to listen to you. Now, how would you like to have that challenge already up front, knowing that? Go. I want you. All right, Isaiah. I'm gonna send you over here. I want you to start a church, but nobody's gonna ever come. You're not gonna have one convert. Just keep on. Just keep on going. Who was the missionary? This goes back, Miss Debbie. This goes back. Was it Hudson Taylor? Maybe. That was the missionary that never had a. There was one missionary. He's called the father of modern missions. I think that's Hudson Taylor, isn't it? Is that Hudson Taylor? I think it is. If my understanding, if my recollection is correct about Hudson Taylor, he didn't have a convert in his ministry. But yet, look at what's happened since him. He opened the door literally to modern missions. Even though he didn't have a convert, look at all the converts that have come as a result of missions. And he opened the door for that. Letter A, he came to give us more than just an existence. That goes back of not enduring, but enjoying, right? John 10:10. Letter B, he came to give us exceedingly superabundant life. John 10:10. So I wrote a little conclusion. Doors are not only for the purpose of being an entrance, but they can cause division. You cannot be on the inside of a door and be out on the outside at the same time. To be on the inside of the door, that's Christ, is to turn you back on the world. To be on the outside is to turn you back on Christ. That's if you're on the outside. Any questions? Anybody miss anything? Any questions about anything? All right.